Nuclear energy, opportunity or risk? Over the past couple of decades, since it has been discovered, nuclear energy seems to be the golden boy of power generation, at least to some people. This method of power generation has a lot of advantages over renewables, such as the ability to generate huge amounts of power at once, very little impact on the environment, surprisingly safe, and the effects of mining nuclear fuel is much less than mining coal. In fact, for a child, breathing the air near a coal mine, the pollution will be just as bad as smoking a pack of cigarettes every day. However, nuclear power does have its disadvantages too. Some of them being the unavoidable byproduct of nuclear waste that is biologically harmful for 10,000 to a million years. The nuclear waste can go through nuclear reprocessing, which makes it usable in another reactor, but this method is very expensive and time-consuming. Nuclear power plants are also an easy target for terrorist attacks. An attack like 9/11 would be devastating to the community around it and would cause a loss of power and nuclear waste being released in the environment that would infect food and water, which would be deadly to anyone who consumes it. Although past disasters have been devastating to their cities, there have been no deaths as a direct result of Fukushima, Japan, and 3 Mile Island, Philadelphia. Both were nuclear accidents. Chernobyl, northern Ukraine, was a nuclear accident that happened on April 29th in the city of Chernobyl, northern Ukraine, that made a radius of 19 miles radioactive to a level that is highly lethal. However, Chernobyl caused around 4,000 deaths. This might seem like a high number, but is relatively low compared to the 10,000 deaths caused by coal in the U.S. every year. And there are 80,000 to 150,000 deaths caused by coal in Europe every single year. Nuclear energy might not seem like the cleanest source of power, but it saves lives and creates huge amounts of power. The only pollution threat that nuclear energy poses is the nuclear waste. However, if the waste is handled and disposed of correctly, there will be hardly any problems and there will be no nuclear waste pollution. The big smokestacks look like a culprit of polluting and contributing to the ever-growing problem of global warming. But all that smoke is really just water vapor. This happens because the reactor generates heat to turn the water into steam, which turns a turbine to generate power. After they use the steam to turn the turbine, they condense some of it, but release most of it through the smokestacks, because steam takes up about 1,000 times more space as liquid water. Deaths and pollution, sadly, are not the only risk that comes with nuclear energy. The mining processes of both coal and nuclear is destructive to the environment and community around the mine. If there is a fault in the transport, there could be coal or even radioactive elements leaked into the environment, which could cause contamination of the water supply and cause lots of health problems. Mining can cause thousands of people to be forced out of their houses and areas. Nuclear waste is the nuclear fuel that has been used in the reactor that is no longer suitable to be used. This fuel is very biologically harmful for thousands of years, and it is crucial that it is disposed of correctly. One method of disposal is not the cheapest, but it is the most effective. Vitrification is the process of mixing the liquid with sugar and pouring it into a heated rotating tube. After it cools, it forms into a substance like glass and is still radioactive, but it's much easier to manage. The waste also boils down when it cools, so it takes up less volume, so it can be packed into more space. This can be very effective for storage purposes. Another method of disposal of nuclear waste is deep geological disposal. This is basically just enclosing the waste in barrels of concrete and sealing it underground very, very far below the surface. The problem with this is that the concrete cracks and breaks down before the waste is safe for the environment, because the waste is lethal for about 10,000 to a million years. When the concrete cracks, it leaks waste into the groundwater or soil, which causes lots of health problems. This is what deep geological disposal might look like. The main shaft and ventilation shaft both go very, very far below the surface, about 800 meters. This is to stop nuclear waste from infecting people or contaminating food supply or water. The future of nuclear power is bright. Scientists are developing new ideas for nuclear power all the time, and one that is not far away from being a reality is the LFTR. The liquid fluoride thorium reactor outperforms the uranium reactors in every way. It generates more energy, it is much more compact, and it produces less waste, and the waste is radioactive for about 400 years instead of uranium's 10,000 to a million years. The LFTR is so compact that there is a prototype to have one power a car from the inside. Currently, the nuclear reactors are using fission to generate heat and power. This is achieved by using heat and pressure. However, scientists are close to figuring out nuclear fusion. Fission is the reaction of uranium isotope splitting, releasing heat and energy. On the other hand, fusion is the joining of two atoms into a single form. While both processes generate huge amounts of energy, but fusion is much more efficient when doing this. Fusion is also pollution-free and cheap to run, and the deuterium, which is a stable isotope of hydrogen with a mass approximately twice of that of the usual isotope, to power the reaction is available from seawater. A deuterium is basically just the fuel that powers the reaction. And why does all this matter? There has always been controversy surrounding nuclear power, and there always will be. However, coal and fossil fuels are getting worse and worse for the environment as the world continues to develop. According to the NEI, Nuclear Energy Institute, and needtoknow.nes.edu, in the U.S., nuclear energy produces 19% of the energy used. On the other hand, fossil fuels, which is oil, coal, and natural gas, produces 80% of the total energy used. It is obvious that fossil fuels contribute to the power generation. However, it is a dirty and inefficient source of power. It needs to be replaced with a cleaner and more efficient nuclear power. In order to achieve a clean, efficient society, we need to invest more money in nuclear because in order to achieve a clean, efficient society, we need to invest more money in nuclear energy because the funds that nuclear companies are getting right now is not enough to take up the empty gap when or if fossil fuels are discontinued. Wiping out fossil fuels will also present a challenge because of how widely it is used through all types of machinery.